Gabriel with the Last Huntsman Outdoors channel here. This is part 7 of the mid-size survival knife showdown. This part's going to be about value. Are you getting a good value with each of these knives? And I'm going to score them based on the value that you would spend on one of these. I may have to like pause here and there just to kind of look up pricing and stuff, or current pricing. And just a caveat, I think every knife here is a great knife. I just think some, are better at different things, and that's going to include value. So I'm just going to work from left to right here, or my left to right at least. And I'm going to start with the SE6. The SE6, now granted, it doesn't have to come with this molly backer. It comes with a great sheath. It can come with micarta or G10 scales, and it can come with 3D scales or flat scales. But even with the 3D, micarta scales and all the nice stuff on it, the SE6 only comes at around 130, 140 bucks or so, or definitely sub 150 generally speaking. So with that being said, for an American made survival knife that I think is really great, I'm going to right off the bat give the SE6 a 10 out of 10. I think it is probably one of the best values. And honestly, if somebody was new just getting into all this and they didn't want to spend just a crap ton of money, and I was going to say, hey, here's one knife to pick out, the SE6 is definitely it, for at least for value. I think the SE6 definitely is one of the best values on here. Because what's nice about the SE6 is you get it, you don't have to do nothing to it. If you want to do things to it, you can, but it's good right out of the box. Next one, as far as value goes, Cold Steel SRK. Comes with a decent sheath. The Securex sheath, it holds in pretty well. Not the best belt attachment, and there are some corners cut, and it does have craton handles, but it is like sub $50. That's a hard deal to pass up. Like, in my opinion, I think everybody should have a Cold Steel SRK. Even if it's not your main go-to knife, it's a great knife just as a backup. It's a great knife just to hand off to somebody just in case if, they don't have a knife and you don't want them jacking up your good knife. So the Cold Steel SRK, for value, I think I'm going to start off, I think it's going to be second up on a 10 out of 10, because for 50 bucks, for sub 50 bucks generally, it's kind of hard to beat a Cold Steel SRK. All right, moving down the line here, the Becker BK7. Now, you guys know I'm kind of a Becker fanboy, but I'm going to keep it real with you guys. I do not think the Becker is the best value by a long shot. Generally speaking, last time I checked them out, they're, about 120 bucks or so not much cheaper than an SE6. However, they have kind of crappy handle scales on them, so it's generally about another $50+ for new handle scales. And the sheath is so atrocious that you have to buy another sheath, so there's at least another 50 bucks to maybe even more than that there. So the Becker BK7 could easily start costing you over $200 right off the bat, just to set up a BK7 to be decently functional. So right there, I'm going to have to only give the BK7 a 3 out of 10, because it is not a very good value. And I'm going to say this to K-Bar and Becker, you guys better start getting your ass in line on these Beckers, or they're going to go by the wayside like Ontario. And I hate to say that because I love Becker knives, but they are kind of falling way short on some of the things that they should have. I think they need to revamp the sheaths on them and have them just come with the micarta scales. All right, Lion Steel T6. Now, this is an Italian import. CPM 3V. Now I know there's a second version of it that's in, I can't remember, it's some kind of K, Bullard K steel series. However, generally speaking, it's, at least here in the United States, it's CPM 3V. Now, I've seen the price on these vary quite a bit. I know I got this one off of Blade HQ for like 200 bucks, but I've seen them go up to $300 or so. So sometimes you can get them on sale. $200 is a great deal for this. It's an absolutely amazing deal for this. $300 I think is a little on the high side for an imported knife. The sheath is pretty good. Little bulky, but still pretty good. It's nothing that you have to like replace or go get new parts for it and such. And I think it's a pretty good package right out of the box. I think I'm going to give the Lion Steel T6 a 7 out of 10. The Work Tough Gear Mountain Lion. This is definitely the hunkiest and chunkiest of the knives here. Just an awesome feeling knife. It's made in Taiwan, and while the fit and finish and the production on these are absolutely amazing, the sheath, I would say the sheath is a little on the big and bulky side, but it's nothing that I would feel like I have to replace, and this is a great package just right out of the box. I'm going to give the Work Tough Gear Mountain Lion, I think I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. Just because I feel like it's just slightly overvalued for what it is. I really like it. They're generally going about $250 to $270 or so for one of these. But for an imported knife, I think I would say it's about $30–40 a little too high. But it's overall a really good knife. The Phobos Tier 1 BC. I really like the leather sheath. I kind of pointed out the one issue with it. Now this is a Magna cut, American made. Now the pricing on these, I've kind of seen them in the like mid 300s or so. So I mean, it's an expensive knife for sure. The value on it, now I know Magna Cut is kind of all the rage right now, but I've been seeing Magna Cut kind of vary quite a bit. I've seen some knives that are actually pretty decently affordable in Magna Cut, and I've seen some people really market Magna Cut and put a steep price tag on it too. Me personally, I think there's kind of a little bit better values for the money. However, it's a great and amazing knife. I'm only going to give this knife a 6 as well as far as value. Because I do feel like with this sheath in particular, it may need a little bit of updating or fixing. The Kydex sheath is amazing from what I've seen. All right. This one I might piss some people off with. This is the TRC Apocalypse. Now this is by far the most expensive knife here. This knife is pushing, it's almost $500 for this knife. Like I've seen them generally for about the $475 or so range. You know, don't quote me perfectly on that. It's kind of going off the top of my head. But, you know, by the time you pay for it, taxes, shipping, it's going to be over 500 bucks for this knife. Now it is LMAX steel, but you know, comparing LMAX to some of these new steels that's coming out, it's nothing really that special. Like, I like LMAX. I think LMAX is one of my favorite stainless steels. However, you know, that K329 steel on the Work Tough gear that's half the cost as this, I think is a better steel. Magna Cut, I think, is a better steel. So, you know, for them charging that much money for a foreign produced knife, and don't get me wrong, the fit and finish on this is absolutely amazing and such, but I think this knife is easily $100 to $150 overpriced in my very strong opinion. And I even kind of pointed out with the sheath too, you know, it fits really great and stuff, but there's just a little bit of the rattle with it and such. So something that's that expensive, I kind of expected a little better. So I'm only going to give this a 4 as far as value. You know, if you're just a hardcore TRC fanboy, that's kind of your thing. But me personally, if somebody was just starting off new and they just needed a knife, I would definitely not suggest the TRC Apocalypse for a starter knife. That's kind of more of a fanboy collection knife, or just, you know, die-hard user. Now here we got the Papa Bear, Bush Bear. Now this knife, I'm going to point something out real quick right off the bat. All these knives are a factory produced knife, exception for this one. This guy is a semi-custom maker. He's a one-man show. And if you look at Papa Bear knives, he has some varying price ranges. However, you know, he has some really nice, like, Damascus copper mixed knives, and he has some that's just a good old slab 80 CRV2 steel or some other basic carbon steel, and some scales on it, and they're actually fairly priced. Now, from what I've seen on these are going for about $250 to $350 or so. But for a custom, semi-production, semi-custom made knife here in the United States, made by one guy, that's actually a really amazing deal. Like, I've had knives custom made for me before and spent over $400 on them. And just seeing the fit and finish on this and just how well executed it is for a one-man team, sub $300 generally for the Bush Bear, that's an amazing deal. So I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. All right, Reef Knives, F6. Good old chunk of CPM3V made right here in America. Kind of not much to complain about, right? Love the Reef Knives. I think it's probably one of the best just general bushcraft knives here. It comes with a great sheath, and it has a leather option and a kydex option. And from what I've seen, they're coming out with a new kydex, so I'm kind of curious to see how that works out, because I think it addressed some of the issues that I mentioned with the kydex with this. But the price tag on this is right at about $380 or $85 or so, if I recall right. So a pushing $400 knife. I don't think that's out of league, especially for an American-made CPM3V knife. I've definitely seen some that are priced much higher than that, and I think this is a really, really great knife for the money. However, I do think it's just slightly on the high side. I think, comparing it to others that I've seen, I think it's about $50 or so, a little on the high side. So I'm gonna give this one a 7 out of 10 for value. All right, last but not least, the Tops Silent Hero. So I love the Tops Silent Hero. It's probably one of my favorite Tops knives that I own. However, if you look at these right now, last I checked, they're going for about $175. And considering that it's still, at the end of the day, and you know, people can argue how Tops does it or whatnot all they want, at the end of the day, it's still just a hunk of American-made 1095 steel. So the fact that it's, you know, $40 to $50 more than the SE6, and the scales are not quite as good, the fit and finish is about the same as the SE6, and like I mentioned earlier, you know, I have this sheath as an aftermarket, but the sheath that it came with was absolute garbage, just a garbage leather sheath. And I don't mind a leather sheath, but just the way it was designed. So that right there, you know, means that you're going to have to go buy another sheath, which really ruins the value, especially for one that I think is slightly overpriced for $10.95. I'm only going to give this knife a 3 as well, as far as value, just because I think it's slightly overpriced. for what it is, and you have to buy another sheath, so which means it's not great out of the box. Well, folks, just tell me what you guys think. I feel like I judged these fairly. I may kind of look back through and kind of change the numbers a little bit, just kind of based on, you know, further thinking on it and such. However, I think I did a pretty solid job as far as rating these as far as value. But please like, share, comment, and subscribe. And with all that being said, be prepared both physically and spiritually. God bless, and carry on.